These were the haunting words of Emperor Augustus, screamed into the marble halls of his palace after one of the greatest defeats in Roman history, the annihilation of 3 entire legions in the dark forests of Germania in 9 AD. But what came after, few talk about. 6 years later, Rome returned not for conquest, but for revenge. And what unfolded next in the swamps of Germania would nearly destroy them again. The defeat in the Teutoburg Forest had shaken Rome to its core. In one swift ambush, 3 legions, Legio 17, 18, and 19, were completely wiped out. Not a single Roman eagle standard returned. General Varus, humiliated and broken, fell on his sword. It wasn't just a loss. It was a trauma. An entire generation of Roman officers was lost, and the mighty empire had its illusion of invincibility shattered by tribal warriors in muddy woods. For 6 years, Rome licked its wounds, seethed in silence, and bled resources trying to recover. Augustus never again spoke of expansion into Germania. The word itself became a curse, but not for long, because in 15 AD, Rome decided it had mourned long enough. It would avenge its fallen. General Germanicus, young, charismatic, and burning with ambition, was given command. He didn't just march into Germania. He stormed in with fire in his eyes. 8 full legions, bolstered by thousands of auxiliary troops and cavalry, numbering over 70,000 men. It was one of the largest Roman forces ever assembled for a single campaign. Germanicus didn't want to merely defeat the Germans. He wanted to erase the shame of Teutoburg from Roman memory. They razed entire villages. They burned sacred groves. They cut down anyone who resisted and many who didn't. The Rhine to the Weser became a wasteland of smoking ashes and corpses. Every tree, every river seemed to whisper, "This is the price of betrayal." At the center of it all was Arminius, the same Arminius who had once served Rome, a Roman-trained warrior who knew their tactics, their weaknesses, their arrogance. He had led the ambush at Teutoburg. Now, Germanicus wanted his head, but Arminius didn't die. He vanished deeper into the woods, refusing to fight on Roman terms. He waited, and winter came. Germanicus, despite his victories, was forced to retreat. Supplies were low. Men were freezing. The forest was swallowing them whole. And Arminius saw his chance. He chose his battleground carefully. A long, narrow causeway of wooden bridges and muddy embankments stretched over a massive swamp. The Romans had to cross it to reach home. And every plank, every bog, every shadow would be his ally. The ambush was set. General Caecina, a trusted Roman commander, led the retreating force, about 5,000 Roman soldiers, across the treacherous swamps. They were exhausted, cold, and dragging wounded comrades behind them. And then things got worse. The Germanic tribes broke the dikes. Water surged through the causeways. The muddy ground turned to quicksand. Wagons sank. Men drowned in ankle-deep water, pulled under by the weight of their armor. Supply lines collapsed. Fear spread like a virus. At night, wolves howled from the trees. The soldiers didn't sleep. And when they did, they dreamt of ghosts. Caecina himself dreamt of Varus, his face bloodied, staring silently from the shadows. But he told no one. At dawn, with no other choice, Caecina gave the order, "Advance, no matter the cost." The Roman legions formed a tight square. The wounded and supply carts were placed at the center. The soldiers moved slowly, dragging their feet through freezing water and slushy muck, hoping to reach dry land. That's when Arminius gave the signal. A war cry echoed across the forest, and the trees came alive. From the slopes and trees, 40,000 Germanic warriors surged forward like a living wave. Screaming, painted in woad and mud, swinging axes and spears, they crashed into the Roman lines. The square formation shattered. Wagons stuck in the mud became death traps. Soldiers slipped and drowned. Some threw away their shields just to swim. Panic erupted, and in the chaos Arminius charged into the center. He was no longer a general. He was vengeance in human form, cutting his way toward the Roman commanders. Caecina fought bravely, nearly losing his life, only to be saved by a desperate Roman counterattack. By nightfall, what was left of the Roman force collapsed back into their makeshift camp, wounded, shivering, half-naked. Many believed this was Teutoburg all over again. A single horse broke loose that night, and in the panic, soldiers nearly killed each other thinking the Germans were charging again. Arminius believed the Romans were broken. He was ready to finish the job. He wanted to lure them into another final trap. But this time he made a mistake. He couldn't control the other Germanic tribes. Bloodlust overcame them. Discipline broke. One by one, warbands rushed forward without waiting for orders. They climbed the Roman ramparts, stormed the gates, hungry for loot and slaughter. And that's when the Roman horns blew. Caecina had anticipated this. He ordered a countertrap. The gates flung open from all sides. Roman soldiers burst out like a cornered beast, attacking in perfect formation. The Germans were caught in the open, no formations, no shields, no escape. The swamp that had once protected them now became their tomb. Tacitus later wrote, "There were no trees here, no swamps of yours, only an open field, and the gods." It was over in minutes. The Germans broke and scattered. Arminius, wounded and shocked, disappeared once more into the forest. Rome had won, but it felt like a hollow victory. The Romans were in no shape to celebrate. They were starving, bloodied, and running low on supplies. Caecina ordered an immediate retreat. No parades, no speeches, just survival. As they limped toward the Rhine, the entire empire held its breath. Rumors reached the Roman border towns. People whispered that Teutoburg had happened again, that the legions were gone, that Germania had swallowed them whole once more. Terrified civilians begged to destroy the bridge across the Rhine to stop the enemy from reaching them. Only one person kept their head. Agrippina, Germanicus' wife, took control. She refused to destroy the bridge. She organized food, medicine, and relief. She met the returning soldiers not with tears, but with purpose. The survivors looked like ghosts, bruised, barefoot, half-starved. They collapsed at the gates like broken men. And then they saw Germanicus himself, waiting for them on the banks. For the first time in weeks, they believed they were alive. The Romans had survived. Barely. Germanicus would go on to fight more campaigns, but this battle, the Second Teutoburg, taught Rome a bitter lesson. You can conquer cities with swords. You can destroy temples with fire. But some lands are not meant to be ruled. And no matter how powerful you are, no matter how many legions you send, the forest always wins. Which forgotten or underrated ancient battle should I cover next? I'm always looking for dramatic, twist-filled war stories that history tried to bury.